But the Donald Trump thing, I am intrigued fundamentally because he is one of the first people that's coming out and actually speaking truth to power on a large stage. And this doesn't mean that I agree with everything that he's saying, but it is kind of refreshing to have someone that is not the stereotypical cookie cutter politician that's, let me get a focus group for everything that's going to come out of my mouth, not answer a single question, and just bullshit people ad nauseum. I mean, he's coming out and he's saying what he thinks. Some of it's incredibly unpopular. Some of it people fervently disagree with. Some of it I fervently disagree with. But it's interesting to have a politician where I, for once, actually think I understand where he's coming from and where he stands. Like if you're going to have a tyrant in charge of an army, I don't know. I feel a little more okay having I think I understand the tyrant versus this is just a crazy person that's going to do whatever they want on a given day based on what political interests have funded their campaign, and I have no idea what's going on. So if there are a few issues like the illegal immigration issue that you mentioned, there was no discussion about this essentially on a national stage before
Right.
Donald Trump, like a bull in a china shop, kicked the door in and said what he said. And the fact that he has now turned that, which, hey, the fact that there are criminals coming into the United States, as someone that lives in the United States, I don't really like that. That's concerning. And I understand immigration in itself is a huge topic in question for libertarians and anarchists. I mean, in a free society, immigration is called moving. So people go where they want, and not a problem. But if you're going to have a welfare state, if you're going to have all these status policies, which we do have in the United States, if you just let anyone come in and just walk into the country, you're going to go bankrupt pretty quickly as your welfare programs and welfare rolls expand exponentially. And if you're gonna do the status thing, you got to kind of close your borders and have some semblance of law and order in that respect. So, but yeah,
Well, I think that no, go ahead. Sorry.
well, he started this conversation, and I can't think of a single example where there's been someone that has started what I think is an important conversation about this. I mean, this was kind of a no-go area. You just don't talk about this stuff because minority groups and that will come out. You'll immediately be branded a racist. We've seen this a lot in the news over the course of the last couple of years. Anyone talking about racially sensitive, potentially issues, just immediately branded a racist and thrown into the fire with media scorn everywhere. And it's nice that someone frankly has the balls to bring up necessary and important subjects and make them a subject of national discussion. I mean, hey, what are the facts? Let's look into this. Let's see what's what. If there is a problem, let's see if it can be corrected. Let's look at it. But previously, it wasn't even being looked at. So the fact that he has made it a topic of conversation and something that people are now able to talk about, and maybe we can prove it wrong. Maybe not. Maybe there's information that comes out and says, hey, there's not some criminal people coming across the border. At least now we can have the conversation because of something he did, which, he's taken a whole lot of hits, taken a whole lot of scorn when he was pretty successful doing what he was doing. He was getting a lot of attention. He was getting a lot of praise. He was getting a lot of adulation. And now he's in the crosshairs of everybody, including the Republicans. And I don't know, there's some respect there for taking some bullets to talk about some stuff which no one else was willing to talk about, and being a charismatic public figure who's been in the public eye for decades and having the FU money in the bank of $10 billion or however much it is, not needing to worry about, can I fund my campaign? If I say this, am I going to get a lobbying gig if this doesn't work out? Or am I going to get a cabinet position or this or that? It's just, this is a very unique situation where you have someone that is charismatic, who's a public figure, who people naturally have gravitated to on television and are aware of, has a high enough profile that's actually spending his own money and bucking the system to a degree. And those qualities have not been present in any politician, certainly in my lifetime, that I've seen. And the bravery in talking about stuff that isn't popular, I appreciate. I mean, I think we do that a lot in this show. And it's just fascinating to see someone talk about this kind of stuff on a national stage and the ensuing shitstorm that erupts around them when they try to do it. So again, I don't think we're going to get to a free society because Donald Trump. That's no. But I do think it's interesting, and I find myself more intrigued by politics these days than I have ever, ever. I mean, certainly since, accepting the realities of the state, whether it's libertarianism, voluntarism, anarchism, call it what you will. Um, and surprising to me, I did not think like, yeah, if the vote was close in New York, where I live, and it won't be close in New York, Democrats win New York always, would I cast a vote for Donald Trump? The fact that I would even ask myself that question was like, help, somebody, help me. But I feel a ton of appreciation for someone willing to take some shots to talk about important stuff. And that being said, there's some stuff that he said that is I really disagree with. But I do feel like I understand his position and where he's coming from on a lot of issues in a way that I don't with any other politician.
Well,
So
if he
it's
can be popular with you, right? And again, we're just using these phrases very loosely. But if he can be popular with you, that really helps understand why he might be so popular with other people who would be much more inclined to be pro-political, right?
well, I mean, there's this talk of this silent majority that has kind of abandoned politics. And I think a lot of people have just, every politician is the same. Obama comes in and he promises this, and there was lots of enthusiasm and lots of excitement, especially amongst the younger generation. And then he gets in and it's more the same. And a lot of the shit that he said was going to get done didn't get done. And a lot of those promises that didn't get kept. So people going like, okay, this was like the politician. This was the John F. Kennedy of our era. And nothing has really changed. Yes, we have some Obamacare, which if you have to actually pay for it, oh my God, the premiums going through the roof. There's other stuff that has happened, but it hasn't exactly worked the way it was promised. We're not saving those thousands of dollars on insurance premiums. I'm paying them every month. I'm aware of this. Um,
Well, government spending has gone through the roof.
oh
Welfare
yeah.
spending is up by a third. Deficits and debts are exploding. This is the least transparent organization in terms of, after promising to be the most transparent
Oh yeah, that's a
organization.
big one
Foreign
for.
policy is a disaster. They keep getting dragged into wars. I mean, it's a complete catastrophe. The Obama administration is, even by the standards of the state as a whole, it is a complete catastrophe. But guy's a community organizer. You put him in charge of the biggest economy in the world. What do you think is going to happen? My Smurf didn't run Intel very well. Yeah, well, okay.
Gargamel
Right.
is at the
Is that
borders.
racism
Damn it.
against blue people? I think that's racism against blue people who are short. And now,
But compared to like Jeb friggin' Bush or something, or Hillary Clinton, I have some hopes and some thoughts that of all the available candidates, even if he is the worst or is the best of a bad lot, that he's less likely, to, based on some of the stuff he said in the past. As a businessman too, you kind of have a better understanding of forecasting risk and consequences of actions, the unseen costs in the future of your current actions. I think he's a better person to be in that position than anyone else, just for that reason. What's the next ISIS? What's the next illegal immigration where there's all types of stuff coming across the border and it's unchecked and uncontrolled, and now we have to deal with a problem potentially in the United States. What's the next thing that having someone that's business competent in there will see and not stir up and create himself?
well, he's not just business competent. Sorry, Stein, I'll shut up in a sec. But I mean, he's not. I mean, he's successful on television. He's obviously successful in business, and he's also a successful author, a wildly successful author,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a pretty good public speaker, a
Oh
very
yeah.
good public speaker in many ways.
I don't think even people that hate Trump,
Yeah.
I don't think are going to refute that. I mean, he's a very captivating personality to watch.
So as far as a very competent person in the White House is tempting because the cheese-eating dunderheads that have been cycling through that they've just been so terrible. Like just the people who end up in power, they're not very successful people. You could sort of argue, well, Reagan in the past, at least he had a successful movie career, and then he was governor, and like he did something well.
Successful movie
For
career versus I've created a $10 billion business.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so he is a wildly competent human being, and his finances reflect that. So that to me, it's just like, could we get somebody who's actually really good at something into the White House? That is a fascinating question that is almost worth playing out just as a theory test. But sorry, Stoyan. So
Right to the engine, turn him into fuel immediately. So,
Man alive. I mean, that's well, what I find interesting in particular is that Donald Trump has had a career where the government has been in his way,
mhm,
whereas the other politicians, for the most part, have had careers where the government has been their propulsion to power.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, Hillary Clinton has benefited enormously from her association with Bill Clinton and the government, right? They've made tens of millions of dollars in speaking fees and book fees, all of that. So for Hillary Clinton and for Barack Obama and these guys, the government has been their jetpack of power and money and prestige. So the idea that they're going to have a negative view of the hand that's feeding them is kind of incomprehensible.
Right.
But can you imagine what it's like trying to build and get permits and deal with manufacturing and all the regulations and all of that, the environmentalism, the OSHA, the like all of the stuff that goes. Donald
Mhm.
Trump, I'm sure, has had this like incredibly fractious and friction um, tense relationship with the state his entire career. And I kind of like someone who's really been annoyed by the state getting in charge. That's interesting to me.
I have a lot of respect for people that are capable of getting shit done. Even if it's shit I fervently disagree with. There's a measure of respect there for it's like, well, you were able to accomplish that. You said I'm going to do this and then you did it. You made it happen. That's not a trait that a lot of people have. And there's a measure of respect for anyone who's able to follow through on what they say they're going to do in my mind. So, if it's stuff like I want to build this amazing hotel and amazing casino. Can you imagine what it's like to build something of that magnitude in New York or Chicago or one of these bureaucratic statist hellholes? I cannot fathom the amount of red tape and bullshit you need to go through to get such a thing done. And he's got a lot of that kind of stuff
Yeah.
done. I mean,
Yeah, if you want someone to fight corruption, you want the guy who's been paying bribes, not the guy who's been receiving bribes.
yeah, and he's up,
Yeah.
and I thought it was amazingly refreshing when he's like, they're like, well, you've given a lot of money to politicians. He's like, yeah, I give money to everything. Never know when I'm gonna need to get something done in the future. Never know when I'm gonna need a
Yeah.
favor or need to get something. It's like this is how the system works. It's like, wow, someone's actually saying that on national television in front of a wide audience and getting lots of attention. That's that's
It's refreshing.
different.
It
Yeah,
is
that's
definitely
different.
refreshing.
I mean, compared to what? Jeb Bush? Like, fuck.
I'm going for the tapioca vote. I've got it locked up.
So there's unless you guys have anything more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the immigration thing, I don't think he knew ahead of time how popular it was going to be or how interested people were going to be in it. So I don't know that I'd be hesitant to say, I don't know. I mean, you could be right, whether he does stuff just because he thinks it's popular. I
He
think he
does not
genuinely
strike me
believes.
as someone who's biting his tongue, and I've watched quite a
Yeah,
few interviews because I'm looking for it. I'm
not a
like,
lot of spin.
yeah, he's kind of blunt out there, and I appreciate the bluntness after having the velvet glove, which is sticking a fucking knife in my back from all politicians. The bluntness, even if it's something I disagree with, it's like I appreciate your bluntness. That's at least I know where you stand or have a good feeling that I understand where you're coming from, and
Has
not
now
gonna
has he
surprise
talked about because when he talks about the trade deals with China, with Mexico and so on, and he says that they're just terrible deals. America's getting paid, you know. Now the guy who's written a great, at least a very best-selling business book called The Art of the Deal, the fact that he's even talking about trade deals, which the majority of American population have no idea about, and that would basically include me as a whole as well.
me.
Has he talked about what he doesn't like in the trade deals? I mean, because that's kind of cool that he could even bring these topics to the attention of Americans.
He does. I don't really feel as if, well, he does to some extent. I don't know because again, it's not something I am terrible. Does pay insurance premiums? I don't know. It's an interesting question. So
I think that the phrase that keeps popping into my head is buying time.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, because again, I don't think Donald Trump getting elected is going to like change the political system for the future, and we're going to lead to a free society on the back of Donald Trump and his amazing hairdo. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But God, I mean, it seems like shit. Looking at the news, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And there's more problems. And then it's like, let's go over here and do this. Problem. Let's go. Wow. Saying let's in the context of, I'm going over to Iraq and doing this. But, the political class and the military and these trade deals and Iranian negotiations and all this stuff. I mean, like, there just seems like there's more and more problems getting kicked up day after day after day. It'd be great to just have someone who wasn't kicking up additional problems that make the world more unstable and more dangerous, let alone potentially being able to act decisively if you.
To get a generation or two of better parenting in place so
Yeah.
that when the collapse happens, it will go the right way.
And if he's certainly someone who doesn't seem to be prone to biting his tongue, if he meets resistance in the political process, is he going to have a frank conversation? This is, if you're going to have a politician that does good, I always thought you'd want someone who has frank and honest discussions with the American people about, okay, we want to do this. Everyone agrees that this is what we should do. For example, the drug war. Everyone agrees that, for the most part, that the drug war has been a massive failure by any statistical measurement. The drug war has been a massive failure. But no one, it's like, well, younger people in general tend to say, let's legalize drugs. Conservative Christians are like, no, let's not do that. But no one's actually talking about, it's like, okay, we're aware this drug war has been a failure. We're aware that we have a prison industrial complex. We're aware of all this. Are we going to actually do anything about it, or are we just going to stick our head in the sand and ignore it? And he seems to be the type of person that, okay, we're going to do X because X is the best for X, Y, and Z. This is the best reason. What is preventing us from doing X is this. I mean, that is what a president should do to have a positive impact, is say, hey, look, this is a giant mess of bureaucracy. Look, we can't do this because of the union. We can't do this because of, these politicians naming names that are putting up the roadblock, and they're receiving funding from this company, and they're not passing this because of this. You'd want someone that exposes the political process for the shell game that it is, and explains why stuff isn't getting done, so the public puts the public pressure on the impediments and the roadblocks. And it can be, in some ways, it can be a massive educational campaign to the corruptness of the system.
Now, let's circle back to the immigration thing for a sec. I mean, the first point I want to make is that I'm thrilled with someone who's not afraid of the media, because that's been a huge stumbling block for Republican politics for the past couple of generations. It's the Republicans are terrified of the media, and they throw the Republican voting bloc under the bus in order to appease the media, to not be called racist, to not be called sexist, to not be called elitist, to not be called white privileged minors or whatever. And so the fact that you have somebody who's genuinely not afraid of the media, and who, through not being afraid of the media, is showing the media to be a paper tiger, because the media all explodes with outrage and rage. Oh, he said this about John McCain. Oh, he's saying this about immigrants. He's done.
And his polling numbers go up.
Yeah, and his poll numbers keep going up. So what he is a living testament that hopefully will give some courage to other people that the media is a paper tiger. Just because the media gets mad at you, that's just a bunch of whiny mama's boys, basically, who are generally on the left, trying to pretend that the pen is mightier than the truth. And so the fact that he's not afraid of the media, and the fact that the media disapproval of him, it only seems to serve to enhance his reputation, is fantastic. It's like what one man can do, another can do. Hey, this guy's not harmed by this weapon, so I guess I don't have to be scared of this weapon anymore. Because people who live inside the world of politics and the public life, the media is always around them, and the media shapes a lot of opinions around them. But outside of that bubble, people hate the media in general. Like America, you look at sort of trust in the media, it's ridiculously low. I mean, people genuinely hate the media. So if the media hates you, you got to be doing something right. Just so I think that is important. The fact that he's bringing up this debate on immigration is long overdue. Long overdue. Like as recently as 1965, America was pretty homogenous when it came to culture. Since Ed Kennedy put in the 65 Immigration Act, which he promised would not change the American demographics in any substantial manner, American society has wildly changed, and it's not been debated, because anybody who tries to bring up any debate about it is instantly screamed down as a racist and blah, blah. So the fact that this is something that needs to be discussed about. The fact that people who vote generally Democrat are pouring over the border is cheating in politics. That is buying off the judges. That is not fair. That's even worse than targeting the Tea Party groups through which Obama stole the election.
Americans have to face. I mean, it's not just the United States. Let's be fair. Europe is dealing with a lot of that too. But in the United States, at least there is Donald Trump. That to me is from the perspective of an outsider. At least there's Donald Trump who talks about it publicly.
Right.
And that to me is also quite refreshing. That there is no such personality around here, and usually when there is, it is the fringe radical elements in society. Whereas now you have a successful man who is open about it, and he's not afraid, as you said, of the media.
Oh, if you could create a Frankenstein monster in a lab to potentially have some impact on the political system in a positive way, I mean, you'd
Franken-Trump?
want Franken Trump. You'd want someone with the qualities that Donald Trump has. The fact that he has $10 billion, has been incredibly successful in business. He knows all the bureaucracy. He knows all the problems. In trying to get stuff done in this country, he's familiar with monetary policy. He's familiar with international trade because he's dealt internationally with a lot of his business. I mean, he's a public figure that people know and have strong opinions about and gravitate to, and a charismatic personality. I mean, getting like one of these traits in someone, I immediately think, and people have made this comparison too, to Ross Perot, and when Ross Perot ran, because Ross Perot also had a lot of money and therefore was able to self-finance his campaign and get a different perspective out there. But it's not like Ross Perot was a charismatic figure. It's
Yeah, I
not like
didn't have
Ross
the
Perot,
charisma.
in the face of media criticism, was as fiercely, fiercely speaking truth to power in the way that Donald Trump is about some of these issues. And
And he had a funny voice that could easily be made fun of.
he
And
held up
most
lots of
people, of course,
charts,
most young people, like the same thing with Sarah Palin. Like a lot of people genuinely think that Sarah Palin said, "Well, I can see Russia from my house," which she never said, right? That's something that Tina Fey said when she was making fun of Sarah Palin. And so, in the same way, like Saturday Night Live made a lot of fun of Ross Perot, and that's where people got their impressions of him from. But people actually have had direct experience, living room experience with Donald Trump for many years, because what he's been doing The Apprentice for like 15 years or 18, like it's just been going on and
I don't
on.
think it's been
So people
18, over a decade at least, I'm pretty sure.
a decade at least. And so people have had like direct in the living room experience of Donald Trump, which of course nobody knew Ross Perot from a hole in the ground. So he was easier to mock because people didn't have historical knowledge of him. But Donald Trump has been in people's living rooms forever. And he's very, very popular. I mean, you can't run a success. And he points out in his speeches, other people have tried to replicate the success of The Apprentice, and they've all failed. And so it's his charisma and his likability factor that has a big impact. And so the media doesn't have someone whose perception they can shape, whose initial impression they can shape, because he's very well known to the American public. I mean, he's been known since the 80s to
Oh
the
yeah.
American public. He's been an American public figure for decades. And in people's living rooms on television. And so when people try and pay him as a buffoon, as an idiot, and stuff like that, that was easy to do with Ross Perot, who was short and had a kind of whiny voice and used a lot of charts and so on, and didn't have a lot of charisma and was unknown to the American public. But it's easy to slander someone that people barely know, but if you've known someone really well, you can just dismiss that, and the media look ridiculous. And the fact that the media is shooting and their arrows are shattering. Like I was reading this thing in the New York Times that they've gone back to some of his depositions from court cases from years ago, and they've gone back to his wife and his divorce proceedings. They're trying to dig up whatever dirt they can. I mean,
That's how desperate
it's
they are. Yeah.
it's so pitiful. I
And
mean,
this is
engage the
someone that
man on the
they
facts. God, it makes the media look like just a bunch of neckbeard trolls, which they are, in fact. But it really exposes the media. I think that the Donald Trump campaign is going to be the death knell of mainstream media. I know that's a bold prediction, but I think that because it used to be that the mainstream media would report on his speech. But now people can go and see the speech for themselves and compare it with the mainstream media's reporting of it and just go, I can't go to the mainstream media anymore because it's all so twisted and hateful and vile.
Yeah.
And there's another point too, which is we often talk about the mainstream media and government as separate entities, whereas I think they're more along the lines of what the church and government were prior to the separation of church and state. So breaking up the power of the media is actually a positive thing with
Oh, well,
regards
I
to
mean,
changing
that's
the
that's
world.
one of the reasons why there's the vociferous hatred of Trump from just like every side of the spectrum, from a mainstream media standpoint, is because this is not politics as usual. This is different. This guy may impact our cozy little system that we have. where, everyone kind of is within the predefined box. And yes, things get very testy during elections because everyone's trying to win. But, we're not going to bring up the big elephant in the room like illegal immigration. That's just on the no-no list, and it's kind of understood. There's certain things that we're not going to go into because mutually assured destruction, or it's not in our interest. And no one wants to cross the unwritten rules and the unwritten lines that exist, because if they don't win, they'd like the lobbying job or the cabinet position, or they'd like to become a consultant or a talking head on Fox News or MSNBC or something like that. So everyone stays within these predefined little boxes politically, and everyone that is even on the stage has received massive amounts of campaign financing from all the groups that serve to benefit from corporate power and government power, influencing their corporations and their interests in a positive way. I mean, this is the first time where there's anyone that seems to be like a genuine outsider. While at the same
Yeah,
time,
big
like you
because big
said,
business
Steph,
love.
let me
Big,
finish this point.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
The genuine outsider, while at the same time he's been on your television and people have been reporting on him for an extended period of time, for decades. You have some idea in your mind as to what Donald Trump is, whether good or bad. And even if it's vociferous hatred, that's a lot better than indifference when it comes to politics. I think you got a whole lot better chance of convincing people to come to your side if they vociferously hate you sometimes, and if they're completely indifferent. Completely indifferent. So, and again, well, like you mentioned, Steph, he he they have these media personalities. They've had this guy on their show for years, and they'd hobnob with him, and they'd smile, and they'd talk about whatever they're going to talk about in The Apprentice, and oh, when you fired so and so, wasn't that something? And then it's like, now he threatens our interests. Let's violently turn on him. Like, and these people that previously were having pleasant conversations with Donald Trump and smiling and schmoozing and all that are now vociferously denouncing him. It's like, wow, if that's not a bigger illustrative example of what the media is, change on a dime because you threaten my interests. Oh, God. I mean, like, I don't know what could expose people to the evil of the media. And some of the recent stuff that's been thrown out against Trump, even liberals and people that hate Trump are looking at this going like, this is just shit. This is just nonsense you're muckraking trying to drag him into. And it gets dismissed and it's not sticking, and everything they throw at him, he's like some bizarre superhero that you try and take him down, shoot a missile at him, and he absorbs the energy and somehow gets stronger. That seems to be what the media hatred and attacks have done to the guy. And it's what an illustrative example of what the mainstream media is, how quickly they can turn on someone that threatens their interests. And my God, this stuff isn't working anymore. Is there a silent majority of people that are sick of this media stuff? Are they sick of politics as usual with politicians that never answer questions, never actually say anything, and it's just a bunch of good old boys doing their thing? Donald Trump seems to be an indication that there's a lot of people that are sick of it, and that being brought to the attention in a greater sphere, I can't. There's some immense positives there.
Americans participated in 2012 presidential election. Only 55%. We don't know where the rest are. They may be indifferent.
Lord, if you're getting someone like me quasi-interested, I mean, you can't have someone that's more opposed to the political spectrum than me, and yeah. I'm intrigued. So
they may indeed be, well, maybe not a majority, but a large chunk of Americans who are very concerned about these things, and there's no one who represents them in politics.
And he's going to get them interested in political stuff. And then we're going to be able to talk to them, and they've got some knowledge base. At the moment, lots of people don't care about politics and won't listen to this show because they think it's a political show or whatever. They don't care about politics. He's going to get them engaged in the political system. And the same thing happened with Ron Paul, to be fair, right? I mean, Ron Paul got a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't be interested in the political system engaged in the political system. Mm-hmm. And, again, I haven't changed fundamentally any of my opinions about that. But I will say that I'm glad he's in the race because he's bringing topics to the forefront that really need to be talked about. And, again, I'm with you, Mike. He's not going to bring about some libertarian paradise. But if he deflates the power of the media and he gives people courage with regards to speaking truth to power, and the real truth to power at the moment is not the government. The real power is the media and their capacity to just lie about people and slander people and dig up dirt and just that general yucky, mean girls, vicious, sociopathic, muckraking, two-faced weasel, backstabbing bullshit that they generally enjoy. So anybody who deflates the power of the media or who reveals them to the paper tiger, I'm behind. I'm glad he's in the race. We're gonna cover this stuff no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a lot more interesting with the Donald around.
I'll tell you interesting, and this is a big thing. I mean, I'm expecting a lot of people, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I'm expecting a lot of people to be very mad at me for talking about my intrigue in the Donald Trump candidacy.
Just being honest, man.
I know, but I'm expecting a lot of people to be very angry at me for talking about this, and aware that if we're going to put on we're in a status paradigm hat, which we are in a status paradigm. The majority of the people are in a status paradigm. What would you want? What would you want? Do you want Hillary Clinton? I mean, I don't. As someone that lives in the United States, I don't. That's rather horrifying to me. 8 years of Obama has already made a lot of the stuff that I pay for a whole lot more expensive. And maybe that would have happened with a Republican, because many of the Republicans are exactly the same as the Democrats in so many ways. It'll just go to war or something else instead. But yeah, nothing has changed, and it's intriguing to me. This is so unexpected that I would find someone running for the political office of President of the United States intriguing, and I would watch interviews with them. And I think the only reason that is intriguing is because it's someone who isn't a politician, and someone who Trump, like we mentioned. If you had to put a bunch of qualities together for someone who was going to be in this position that may have a chance to do some positive stuff, it would be someone that possesses all the stuff that Donald Trump has, which they ain't a lot of people fitting that description and those qualities around, much less those with any type of moral courage or willingness to put themselves and their cozy life on the line. To go from being someone who was a darling, could get on any show and be talked about positively with the general media chit chats and watch your show and all that stuff, to now someone who is vociferously hated by a large segment of the establishment. He's sacrificed quite a bit to do that. So the amount of people willing to do that, he's talked about this too. He's been told is if you do something, if you're successful in life and you do a lot of stuff, yeah, those types of people don't and shouldn't run for political office because they're just going to eviscerate you from every stance. So you get unknowns that haven't done anything. You get George W. Bush's kid. Oh, not George W. Bush's kid. George Herbert Walker Bush's kid. You get the dynasty politicians, or you get, the bought and paid for people that are thrown up there, or, whatever. You get a governor that hasn't done shit, which has driven his local economy into the toilet because, he's got experience managing something. You don't get people that actually have accomplished anything successful. Would you rather have Hillary Clinton, or would you rather have the CEO of Amazon in charge of the country? I'd pick the CEO of Amazon. Is the CEO of Amazon going to run? No, he's not going to run. Donald Trump is. He's got business experience and a lot of intriguing qualities, and I appreciate that. That's even if it's someone that I disagree with their positions, the fact that they will put themselves and their life on the line, their public life and persona on the line to do something that they feel is important, I respect that. I really do. So I wanted to have this conversation and talk about this. I always say, wouldn't it be so great if on a public stage we could have these important conversations about things like immigration and bring a wide variance of viewpoints and arguments and bring the best evidence to bear and just talk about this on a worldwide basis and have these discussions, and people could pay attention and debate stuff back and forth. And to me, that's what this is. This is something I'm expecting people to not like. The fact that I have this enjoyment of what Donald Trump is doing right now. I don't expect people to like it, but it's an important conversation to have, and I want other people to have important conversations. And so it's well, if I want other people to have important conversations about stuff that may be unpopular, I should probably have this important conversation and put myself out there as someone who's has these thoughts and arguments. And please, if there's anything here that I've said that you find fervently disagreeable, I would love to talk about it more, because again, it's an important conversation. Let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion. It's I've really enjoyed just talking about it now, much less the further discussions that come into the future. So Just put that out there. I'm expecting a lot of aggression. Hopefully that's not the case, but
Be nice to Mike. He's just being honest. We ask listeners to be honest. I'm fascinated by your fascination, and I'll watch the speeches and I'll absorb. And I don't exactly know where I stand as yet. I'm still continuing to gather information. Mike is Stoyan. Is there anything that you wanted to add to close up?
Oh, it's been something I've been mulling over, a theoretical, and when I was thinking about Donald Trump, Atlas Shrugged popped up in my mind, and I thought to myself, what if Dagny Taggart became the president of the United States in the universe of Atlas Shrugged? What would happen? And in the Iranian world, there was this relentless push of the masses towards the left until the utter destruction of society. That may not be true. There may be a swing back into more conservative values that has been going on in the United States quietly, mainly because the media will not report on it. And that may buy us a little bit of time to spread our message, because I mentioned this in another conversation with Mike. There does seem to be a little bit of despair, especially lately as we've been looking into the economic destruction that is just looming over the country. We don't have enough time. We released a video that we passed 250,000 subscribers. That is not enough. That is not enough. And if he buys us time, that may be a good thing in the long run. I've not decided where I sit on the question of Donald Trump good or not yet, but as Steph said, I'm curious about Mike's opinion of him, and we'll be watching the interviews that Mike will inevitably share with me every day as soon as he wakes up.
With the little hearts, N plus DT forever carved in a tree.
I'm going to open a Tumblr blog with my intrigued, and I want to share my intriguement about this, because the last thing I ever expected was to ever be interested in a political candidate ever again in my life. Ever, 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 ever. And life is full of surprises. Let's say that.
Just when you think you're out, they keep pulling you back in.
So